We good on the mic situation?
Big Drive Energy Hump Day Wednesday episode. And we've got quite a lot to talk about. I always go into a pod and I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And then it's just golf news after golf news after golf news. And it's not even really main golf season. So we're going to talk about Rory McIlroy, Mitchell's favorite player, winning the race to Dubai on the DP World Tour. Rafa Campos, shout out Rafa Campos. Campos. I'm not saying like compost. End. Period.
I thought you were saying like compost, like what you recycle.
No, I kept trying not to say that, and it just kept regurgitating out of my mouth. Rafa Campos, pins and aces guy, wins the Butterfield Bermuda Championship on the PGA Tour. PGA Tour, going through some serious changes for 2026. So one more year the way it is, and then big changes coming in 2026. There's a lot of player reaction, field size changes, etc. Nelly Korda won again her 7th of the year, and we'll talk about the DP World Tour guys that we'll see on the PGA Tour in 2025, plus Mulligan Monday. We've got some good ones for you today. All right, let's tee it up. Welcome to Big Drive Energy this Wednesday afternoon. Beautiful day here where I'm staying in the Mile High City. 60 degrees, but it was colder than a witch's tit yesterday, for sure. It was freezing. Not applicable. I played indoor golf yesterday, and the place was popping, so that just goes to show where we're at here. I'm at Big Drive Spence here with my brother at Big Drive Mitch. How was your weekend, brother? How was getting back to, I know your weekend was actually here, but we were here, but we're not here. We weren't really hanging out a ton. Flew back to New Jersey. How was the travel?
Yeah, man, it was good. Not a whole lot to complain about. The flight back out to New Jersey is always way quicker than the flight from New Jersey to Colorado. It's like 45 minutes less because of the jet stream, which is awesome. So, but losing the 2 hours, like traveling west to east is always, you just feel like you lose a whole day, because I took off at like 3:30 and landed at 9 p.m. and it's like a 3-hour flight, so it just feels like you lose a lot of your day. But other than that, the weekend was great. The Broncos rolled, which was fun to watch. Great NFL slate this weekend, and I guess I can save it for Chefy of the week, but my fantasy teams are absolutely rolling right now. Another 3-0 week this week. I am second in 2 leagues and first in another league. So we can touch on that here a little bit later. But overall, yeah, congratulations to me. I just want to circle back on Spencer calling me like a terrible fantasy football manager. And I know he was kind of kidding, but also every time now that I win, I just like to rub it in his face. So suck it, Spencer.
Yeah, if you listen to this pod, you kind of have an idea of who Mitchell is, and there's, like, I could call him a fucking pig, and he would just laugh at it. And I talk about his fucking fantasy team, and it's like I just slapped his firstborn child in the face. Like, so funny to me how that just gets you. Like, and don't get me wrong, your fantasy teams are pretty decent this year, but it's not like you're some Mike Tomlin of fantasy here, all-time coach. Like, You drafted decently. You got some good players.
I won 2 leagues last year that we're both in together. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're forgetting my tenure. I win at least 1 league that we're in almost every single year. I am actually Mike Tomlin. I might be Andy Reid. That might be more fitting. The non-Mormon version of Andy Reid. I'm dialing up the right shit week in, week out. I'm moving the lineup around. I'm just kind of feeling hot right now. So you just let me ride, like, I don't know what your deal is with fantasy football, but you're just not very good at it. Like, you think you're a ball knower, but when it really comes down to putting your money where your mouth is, it usually ends up pretty poorly. And then I feel like by the end of the year, you kind of cash it in and you're just like, oh, I'm not really trying. And it's like, yeah, because your team sucks.
Well, I've got a few excuses here that I'll roll out. Number one, I do get kind of hosed with and it's an excuse, but it's not. Like, everybody checks their fantasy lineup Sunday morning, and a lot, like, half of the year on Sunday mornings, I'm working my bag off before the Broncos play. So I'm not too dialed into my fantasy. I know I can check Saturday night. There's been a few lineup things that have hurt me last minute on Sunday that I don't really have time to check. That's not really an excuse, a little bit of an excuse, but the only problem I have with your current statement is, have you checked in the one league we're in together with some other people that I am actually in first place in that league? So where are you at there?
You are in first place in that league. I'm in a close second. I actually think it's you and Oliver and I in that one league that basically are head and shoulders above everybody else. But I was actually just talking shit in one of our fantasy group chats with all of our buddies from high school, and the bottom of the league, Sam Gibbs, shout out Sam. I went in and changed his name to power bottom of the league, which I thought was amazing because I am also the commissioner of the league. But then I averaged it out. If I were to play him every week in fantasy, I would beat him by 28 points on average every single week. Like, I have scored 120 more points than the closest team points wise for the season in that league. So it's really not even close. I actually think I have more points scored than you in the league that you're in first in. So I think you're just a fucking wolf in sheep's clothing, or a sheep in wolf's clothing. The opposite of that. Your team.
I'm a bye-week matchup merchant is what I am.
You are a fucking merchant, dude. And I've had some rough bye weeks. Like, I actually forgot this week. I ended up with 3 defenses on one team because the 11 o'clock game started, and I had picked up the Dolphins defense to play the Raiders this week, and I forgot to put them in my lineup. So I ended up picking up the Bills at like 11:30 Mountain Time and putting them in. So I think I had the Browns, or no, not the Browns. I had the Steelers D, the Dolphins D, and the Bills D all in my lineup by the afternoon. But I think I scored like 175 points. I'll just get to it right now. I think my 3 teams, I averaged about 175 points in my 3 leagues this week. So I had a fucking hot week on the fantasy football front.
Hot week. Yeah. One thing I am not very good. If I draft a good team, I'm decent at managing my own team, start sits. I'm like decent at picking matchups, but I am not, and I haven't been in years, a waiver wire guy. It's just like too much work for me to like look on a Tuesday and be like, oh, all these hot pickups, because I do some of my teams, like if I'm not in a playoff spot, or not even kind of like fucking around the middle, I'm not even gonna like try anymore. Like, when my teams are good and I'm cooking and I know I'm gonna make the playoffs, I'm like, all right, we'll get a few more dubs here. But like, when I start off bad or get to like that 6 loss threshold, or 6 or 7, one of my leagues I lost 5 weeks in a row now, and I'm just getting plowed. And so I've kind of given up. But I'm not a big waiver wire guy. And I remember back in the day when I was obsessed with fantasy football when it first started, I waited
before you had a wife and a child, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is college, probably 2016, 2017. I waited till 3 a.m. refreshing the ESPN app to see if I got Vincent Jackson on waivers from the San Diego Chargers at the time. That's how obsessed I was. And now, like, the waiver wire to me, like, I went in and picked up a guy. I picked up Quentin Johnson today because I needed a receiver this week. But I'm also very bad about my bench is like dead to me, but it's also very hard for me to drop someone. I have 2 defenses right now in one of my teams, and I couldn't figure out which defense to drop because I wanted to pick up Quentin Johnston. I was like, I can't drop any of these guys. Like, what if they go off? And I have like Jaden Reed on my bench in this team, who I picked up Quentin Johnston to start over. And like, if you're a bench guy to me, you're a fucking bench guy. I'm going to find someone else off waivers to start, and you're going to stay on the bench. But why do I not drop him? I don't know. I just don't want to give somebody else Jaden Reed, who could have 3 touchdowns in a week here coming up while he's on my bench.
Absolutely. You get like pre-FOMO about like not having that guy on your team, even though he hasn't done anything good for you, because you feel like it's kind of like anything, like buying a stock. It feels like right when you sell the stock, it moons. But if you hold it for forever, it just goes in the fucking tank. I will say that in the one league, in our brothers league, the 8-man league, which is every team kind of has an embarrassment of riches in an 8-man league, but it almost makes it tough because I have legit like 5 starting wide receivers that I have to choose between. Because there was 2 guys that I was way ahead on this year, and I will pat myself on the back, credit to me a little bit. I was way ahead on Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. So I have Brock Bowers in all 3 of my leagues. I got him late, and he is the number 1 tight end in the entire NFL right now. And then McConkey has come on as basically Justin Herbert's number 1 target, I would say, with Quentin Johnson. But also that leads me to another thing I wanted to mention. I watched Justin Herbert play the Bengals, which was an electric game, by the way. Awesome game. The Bengals were dead, and then they weren't, and then they're dead again. Isn't there a meme? Oh, I'm alive. Oh, I'm dead again. That was the Bengals Sunday night. But honestly, like the national media, and I don't know if it's just the LA, the LA New York bias, the West Coast bias, but everybody blows Justin Herbert weekly, double wrister, like every single week. He's the best, top 3 in the league. I watched him in the end of that game. He almost lost that football game for that team. And he did make a few throws down the stretch that were really good, but there was a few throws that he made that easily could have been picked off, or he easily could have made and just didn't make. And I'm like, the dude has got all the talent in the world. And don't get me wrong, he doesn't have that much help on the outside. But at the same time, I was not, and obviously it's not a huge sample size. I don't watch the Chargers every week, but it just, I don't know, maybe it was an off game for him, but he was like 50% completion percentage that night. He did not look good. And everybody walks away from that game saying, once again, he's a top 3 guy in the league when Joe Burrow just outplayed the shit out of him, but his team just can't fucking figure out how to finish, and Evan McPherson pisses down his leg.
Yeah, I think the Herbert stuff is he came out and was so highly touted when he came out of Oregon, and then he went to a team that was quite literally cursed, but now they're scary to me. Like they're a scary football team with Jim Harbaugh at the helm, and they've totally feel like every year you're like Chargers gonna Charger, and this year I don't think they're going to Charger. I think they're going to make the playoffs, be comfortable. Herbert's playing good, and he doesn't have the weapons that he used to have. He used to have Keenan Allen, and I don't know if he ever played with Antonio Gates, but they had some good tight ends when he first started. Like they've always had weapons around him and good backs. Eckler was a great back for a couple of years, and they never could get it done. And now he's got, Dobbins and Edwards, which is, by the way, my biggest L in fantasy this year was drafting Gus Edwards on just about every team. Super late, but I thought, Gus Edwards has been healthy his whole career and Dobbins hasn't. So that was probably my biggest sell.
Yeah, no, you definitely, you told me, and to your point, like Dobbins literally had a season-ending injury like almost every single year the last 6 years. So the fact he's still playing football, hat tip to him. But 2 things I've realized this year in the NFL is like sometimes addition by subtraction is actually a thing where, like you said, with the Chargers, they don't have all the talent on the outside. They don't have Keenan Allen. They don't have Mike Williams, but they have a really good offensive line. Like they bolster their offensive line in the draft, and they don't have all the talent in the world on the outside, but these guys are still NFL wideouts. Like there is a difference, but it's probably a 1% to 2% difference between the elite and the non-elite wideouts in the NFL. And if you have a really good quarterback that has time, there's going to be guys that get open. So that was one thing I noticed, similar to like the Buffalo scenario where Josh Allen loses Gabe Davis. He loses fucking Stephon Diggs. And his numbers have never been better. Like you add Khalil Shakir, you add Amari Cooper, guys that are not, and look what Gabe Davis has done. I mean, the Jaguars are a fucking laughing stock, but the Jaguars have been terrible this year. Gabe Davis has done nothing.
Well, yeah, he's been hurt. He hasn't played all year.
Oh, well, I mean, there's that as well, but there's just
guy has no numbers.
Well, dude, he hasn't
0
been hurt
catches
all
5
year.
straight weeks.
1 week I
think
took him
he's
in
only
a
played like
touchdown.
2 weeks.
Okay, well, he's fucking not good either way, and the Jaguars are just not good. But dude, it really goes to show you like a good quarterback with a good offensive line, like we're seeing here in Denver, a decent quarterback with a good offensive line. The talent is uplifted on the outside by that instead of you look at Chicago, and this kind of goes back to like and my other point, how much coaching matters in the NFL, I really realized this year. Like you look at Chicago, for instance, Eberflus is a fucking joke. They have all the talent in the world on really both sides of the ball, besides really the offensive line. And they've been a fucking laughing stock the last 3 to 4 weeks. And then you look at a team like the Chargers, who is seemingly completely cursed, never going to win a championship. You bring Jim Harbaugh in there. He completely changes the entire locker room. He changes the vibe, and they are now, like you said, seeming to be a scary football team. So, and the Broncos too, for that matter. I mean, Sean Payton was somewhat handcuffed to Russell Wilson. Now he's kind of got his guys in there, and we're overachieving for the talent that we have on this roster. So I've just really realized how much coaching matters in the NFL. And anybody that slanders Mike Tomlin, we had this debate in our fantasy group chat a couple weeks ago. If you slander Mike Tomlin, you're the biggest fucking idiot in the world. Like, this dude has done less with more for 15. He's had a winning record 15, 16 straight seasons. Like, that's unheard of. And just the fact that they go, like, I thought that the Russell Wilson move from Justin Fields was fucking stupid. And I was probably a little biased against Russell Wilson. But now they're going and beating the Ravens. They have a top D in the league. Their offense is buzzing. Like, I just am flabbergasted at what the Steelers have done year in and year out. And especially this year, like, if you're making Russell Wilson look good, you got to be pretty fucking good at coaching football.
Yeah, he's just an all-time coach. Well, talking about the Broncos a little bit and the Saints, ironically, who we saw in person get absolutely blasted by the Broncos. That brings us to our Sheffy of the week for this past weekend in the NFL. We don't have any arrests to speak of, any outstanding arrests that we can...
This is not an arrest, but it could be a potential arrest. Did you see that dude get kicked in the face at that pickleball game?
No.
You didn't see that video?
You're so online.
Bro, no, that was all over the place. That was like all over. You got to watch.
Tiebreaker. Emma, have you seen this?
I am trying to problem solve in Slack, so I have not been listening.
Okay. Did you see somebody get kicked in the face in pickleball?
No.
No. See, you lose.
See, you guys are on different corners of the internet. Basically, the two guys went over. It was like a game-winning point. The one guy like screams like he's fucking Rafa Nadal after you just won a match, and he like yells out a scream. They go to like dap up their paddles, and the one dude knocks the paddle out of the other guy's hand. The guy who won the match knocked the paddle out of the other guy's hand. He reaches down to like pick it up for him. Dude just kicks him in the face.
Oh, wow.
Just the fucking I'm trying to think of a nickname for shoes. Just the laces right in his fucking mouth, like drops him, knocks him out with his foot. So it is kind of video worth watching because the dude just fucking goes limp. Like, so there's going to be an arrest there for sure. And then I guess there was like, I think it's professional pickleball. I couldn't tell because there was like 5 people watching. So that could just be like the next senior citizens waiting for the court to open up. But I think it was professional pickleball, and apparently that dude's a scumbag. So just a legendary move. Like, you reach down in front of me, fucking kick you right in the face.
Total pickleball guy move for sure. All right, my Sheffy of the week is going to none other than quarterback tight end for the New Orleans Saints, and that's Taysom Hill. 1 of 2 passing for 18 yards and an interception. 8 catches for 50 yards receiving. 7 rushes for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns, and lost a fumble. If that's not just like, I don't know what you describe, like that can't, how relating that is to golf is like probably hitting 5 or 6 300-yard drives, missing a 3-footer, stubbing a chip, and then like having just a solid iron play all day. It's tough to relate, but just the stat line.
Like,
I had to
like
look
shooting
up
68 with like 9 bogeys.
I had to look up 2 different websites to find the full stat line because ESPN thinks it has his receiving rushing stats, and then another site has his passing stats because they think he's a quarterback still. So I had to duo these websites to try to get the full stat line. But if that's not a dominant performance just all around the field, I don't know what is. And ironically, excuse me, my wife
My wife,
My wife,
I actually,
she has Taysom Hill on her fantasy team, and she was trying to get him in at the last minute for George Kittle, who ended up being out as a tight end. If she would have put Taysom Hill in, her team would have scored over 210 points.
wow.
Like, insane week. And what a weapon to have. I think I have him on one team, but just the fact that he'll go out and do nothing for 3 weeks straight, and then he has a stat line that I don't think's ever been recorded since like since the AFL probably.
Yeah, no, he's like a fantasy football nightmare because if it's the same exact thing we were talking about, you sit him on your bench, he's going to have 35. You play him, and he's going to have 2 points maybe. But can you just imagine how much Sean Payton is drooling thinking about that open cap space the Broncos have to bring on the fucking quarterback, running back, tight end, Taysom Hill next year? Like, I like Sean Payton. Very arrogant dude. Let's just call a spade a spade. He thinks he's God's gift to the NFL. But his affinity for former players of his and like not being able to go away from that, I guarantee you he's like thinking about how much money they can, because they gave Taysom Hill like over $30 million a year, if I'm not mistaken. Which is just grossly overpaying some dude. Like, even though he can throw the ball, catch the ball, do whatever. Do you think Sean Payton's going to try to make a move for Taysom Hill next year?
He is 34 years old, so that may affect the market a little bit. But overall, I mean, I think the craziest part about it is that he's a quarterback first, or could be, was, and you can play him all over the field on offense, but also that roster spot, if you need a backup quarterback, he's right there. So I think that's the insane part of the whole thing, is the fact that he can be, he can take up 2 to 3 roster spots. He can take up a tight end spot, he can take up a running back spot, and he can take up a quarterback spot and just do all the things.
Well, so real quick, let's touch on this then. If we're talking about a dude playing multiple positions, you and I are in the same camp that Travis Hunter should be the Heisman, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I've got 200 to win 3K on that, so...
I think I like that for you. Everybody on social media, as the season has gone on, now everybody I feel like is turning a little bit on Hunter. They're like 3 or 4 weeks ago, everyone's like, holy shit, he's the Heisman. Now you see G&T getting back in the mix. You see Cam Ward getting back in the mix, and all these people are like, oh, Travis Hunter shouldn't be the Heisman, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, I mean, I just don't know if there's any other player that more deserves it. It shouldn't be the best quarterback on the best team. It should be a guy that achieves, especially on both sides of the ball. In my opinion, he's a top 10 wide receiver and he's a top 10 quarterback. I'm not even a Buffs fan. Like, that's just a real fucking thing. And I watch it, and the dude's just supremely talented. He's going to go top 5 in the draft next year. So I definitely think he is the Heisman. But having said that, my Sheffy of the week, it's co medalists this week are Bo Nix and my fantasy teams, because we're all winning. Just stay fucking winning. But no, for real, Bo Nix, I have not felt more comfortable in the last 10 years since Peyton Manning left about saying that I'm not going to stand on the mountaintop and say we have a franchise quarterback right now. Like, there's plenty of football to be played, but I am pleasantly surprised at how good he's been. And a few of those throws he made, that throw over the middle, I mean, it's been all over social media, but over a linebacker, over a cornerback, in front of a safety to Devon Vele last week, that got my stinger up. Like, there's no two ways about it. That was one of those throws where you just like put your hands on your head. You're like, holy shit. Because we just haven't had a quarterback that was capable of doing that in the last decade. So the fact that Bo Nix is making these throws, I personally just did not think he was capable of. And it really goes to show you, like I said, once again, what coaching can do. And the Broncos offensive line's a thankless job. You only know those guys' names when they play like shit, when they allow a sack. But they're the second best O-line in the entire league this year, I want to say. So shout out to them too, protecting our rookie quarterback. But it's been a roller coaster. Like, he's had the bad games, the Ravens, we got absolutely fucking blown out, but then we get up off the mat, we contend in Kansas City, should win the game, and then we go blow out a pretty good Atlanta Falcons team. So I feel like we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to watch the squad having a rookie quarterback being hamstrung by $70 million in cap space that we don't have. and watching them put together wins and talk. Yesterday we were in a group chat talking about playoff spots, and I never thought I've already hit my season over for the year that we put together with a bunch of us, and talking about a playoff spot in mid to late November around Thanksgiving is a gift in itself. And playing games that matter in December is all I've asked for the last 10 years. I haven't asked for much after the Super Bowl. I give it about 5 to 10 years of, all right, we can eat shit now, but I'm kind of tired of fucking on my knees eating shit. I'd rather be smelling flowers up on the top shelf, which is where I think we're headed. Bo Nix is obviously a great player, and just he's perfect for Sean Payton. And the way he can move, he can get out of the pocket. The offensive line's been good stat-wise. Also, some of that is just because Bo Nix is a wizard back there. But now he's starting to make NFL throws, like the one you talked about, which is a big deal. He can make plays on the run. He's smart. Sean Payton had a masterclass in play calling this past weekend. I hope he continues that, putting Mims in the backfield, the tripled misdirection on the first touchdown to Nate Atkins. They need a better tight end room. They need better wide receivers, but that'll come in the coming years. So shout out to Bo Nix and Taysom Hill for our Sheffies of the week.
Yes. Just real quick, I got to ask you, because it had me thinking, like, I love Bo Nix, and obviously he's the quarterback of my favorite team, but he just like strikes me as such a nerd, like a goody two shoes. Not really a guy with much aura, as the kids would say, not a whole lot of swagger. Would you prefer your quarterback to be like a outgoing, in your face type of dude that's just like, this guy's so fucking sick? And maybe it's partially on the field play too. Like Josh Allen, I wouldn't say has all the swagger in the world, but you watch him play and you're like, that dude's a fucking dog. But Bo Nix is just very, I don't know. He doesn't, I guess we haven't seen a whole lot of his personality yet, but would you rather have the quiet Christian quarterback that isn't in the media, or would you rather have the flashy dude that like you tell everybody that's my guy? Like I'm so proud to have that dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm proud to have him. I wish he was like Baker Mayfield more, and I wish he was a little more outspoken and a little more.
I was gonna say Baker Mayfield, but he's kind of that. He's a great mix, because he's that dude that there's video of him getting arrested on campus, like running from the cops. Hilarious. Don't condone it, but funny. And then he's also got like that. He can stand up in front of the media and talk to him. And it's like, I've never heard a bad word about Bo Nix. And just athletes nowadays, they just are built different. Like back 20, 30 years ago, these guys were going out after games. These guys were partying. Now Bo Nix is just like living on protein shakes and reading the fucking Bible. And more power to you. I have no problem with it, but it's just so different. Like he has this superstardom. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's like already married in his early 20s, and he just goes like he's already like he's 35. And I guess that's a good thing to have in a quarterback, because you don't have to worry about week to week, where he is or how well. Like he's gonna show up and do his job every single week. But part of me just wishes he had a little bit extra of that swagger to him, and maybe we'll see that as time goes on. Hopefully.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a high-pitched voice, too, which I don't think helps his case for having a ton of swag.
He's got that kind of like middle school, high school face to him as well, and like the haircut. Like I think he needs to have a little bit more of a grown-up haircut, similar to like Julian Strother. I hate to bounce it around too much, but Julian Strother gives me like high school basketball player vibes. You need to like get that NBA haircut. Bo Nix needs to get that NFL. Like if Bo Nix shaved his head, I'd be fucking, and not like buzz, but just like the low shave. I would totally fucking change my tune. Like I want to see him do something with his hair. Like I don't know what it is, but change it.
Yeah, well, real quick thought on that. Christian Brown also needs an NBA haircut. Watching him reverse dunk on someone and then throw his hair to the side like he's in high school just annoys the tits out of me.
Yes, exactly. The Bieber flow. Like I don't need it. Like Bo Nix has got that like middle school spike in his hair. I'm like, brother, you gotta act like it. And he just kind of dresses like that. He dresses like in jeans and like a t-shirt and shit. And it's like he should be carrying a backpack around like you, like he's going to 7th grade.
He's blue collar. All right, this is officially the part where we start talking about golf. We made it halfway through this golf podcast. Big Drive Energy. Talking about Rory. Let's start with Rory McIlroy. Your favorite player wins the DP World Tour Championship a race to Dubai. He ties Seve Ballesteros for the most wins in the race to Dubai, or not the most, but ties him with 6 wins. And so, what are your thoughts on? Let's take Rory out of the equation. You're a big DP World Tour guy. How would you feel if you're a lot of those players where he doesn't play, but maybe a third of the events? I want to say a third to half ish. I wouldn't even say half. Half is way too much because he's playing pretty much a full-time PGA Tour schedule, and when he's off, he's off. But I think he's played 27 tournaments total in 2024, so that's a lot of weekends of playing golf. Mostly weekends, sometimes just Thursday, Friday. But like, what is your thought being the other guys on the DP World Tour? Where is it like, are you mad that he's over there? Does it help you get eyeballs on yourself because he's a world-class golfer with a very popular name, and one of the things that attract a lot of people to golf is watching Rory McIlroy play? Does it like bum you out if you're a DP World Tour player that he's playing, or does it give you some juice where you're like, all right, cool, Rory's in this tournament, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on it, I'm going to get more eyeballs on me, I get to challenge one of the best players in the world? How do you feel? How would you feel? Put yourself in their shoes.
I would say it's pretty similar to, and I'm actually just trying to look up right now how many. So this year he won twice. He had 4 second place finishes, 1 third place finish, and another top 10. So he's in the top 10 in 8 events. Second place in 4. He was finishing second place, 2 wins. But it's like remember how we talked about Eric Cole going and playing mini tour events? I would say it's like that on a very macro level, and that's not a disrespect to the European Tour players because they're obviously super, super good. But if a guy can come in and win every DP World Tour championship, then he is significantly better than the rest of the DP World Tour, just strictly going off of statistics. So it's like, if you can't beat him, then, what are you doing? And not that they definitely, any guy is capable of going out and beating Rory 1 week out of whatever, but for him to like come over and win as many DP World Tour championships as he has, it's kind of like a rising tide lifts all ships scenario, in my opinion, where if he comes over, like you said, it's getting more eyeballs on everybody, but also it gives you the feeling of I belong here. Like, I'm playing with Rory McIlroy. I'm also a professional golfer. And I think a lot of the way that the professional golfers or any professional athlete's brain is wired, you rarely hear somebody go out and say, I can't beat this guy. Like, everybody thinks that they're the best. And that's kind of part of the mindset you need. So all those guys think they can beat Rory McIlroy. Whether or not they can kind of remains to be seen. But yes, there is a part of it where he just comes over, plays in the biggest events with the most points, plays well. And honestly, it feels like the DP World Tour is almost somewhat of there's definitely less pressure on Rory. First of all, he's in his home area. He's in his home continent, as you would put it. So he's closer to home. There's less eyeballs on the DP World Tour than there is on the PGA Tour, just flat out. That's kind of how it works. It almost feels a little exhibition-ish. Is that a word? Exhibition-ish to Rory, where it's just kind of like a frivolous thing on top, where he doesn't take the DP World Tour season probably as serious as he takes the PGA Tour season. So yeah, I mean, I as a player, I wouldn't hate it, but I also, I would be a little bit annoyed because he cleans up on the PGA Tour, then cleans up on the DP World Tour. But it's like, if you can't fucking beat him, then that's your own fault. But what I will say, and I want you to hear me now, and I'm going to pat myself on the back one more time for admitting when I can change course, similar to a lot of the national media on the Bo Nix draft pick. I am going to, after watching Rory's swing this last week, I am going to flip-flop and say I think he's going to win a major this next year, strictly because of the ball flights that I was watching him produce on some of those shot trackers. I've never once in his career seen Rory hit an actual pull cut and hit a high. He hit this high fade 3-wood into like 18, and it was just fucking gorgeous. And I've literally never seen him hit that shot before. in his career. And it's such a control, like you can tell his path is actually getting closer to zero now from a technical golf swing standpoint. And he's got all the shots in the bag now. And that is, I really think, is going to be the difference, especially with the wedge shot. He's going to probably have closer proximity with the wedges because of where his path is, and relative, his angle of attack as well. It's probably getting a little bit steeper with the wedges, which is what he probably needs. He's a little too shallow. So overall, I do think he's going to win a major this next year as long as he continues on this path with his current swing. But I was just shocked at what I saw out of him because it was unlike anything I had ever seen Rory McIlroy do from a technical standpoint. And I think that actually is like a material change.
So you're in now.
I'm in, dude.
You're back in.
I'm kind of back on Rory. And honestly, it just goes to show you how talented these dudes are. When I was like, he can't change his swing in 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, a week or two later, there's a visible change. There's a visible ball flight change. Like, I don't know how much he grinded in those 3 weeks or a month, but it fucking worked because his swing is different. His position at the top of his backswing is less across the line. He's getting less caught inside. He's able to hit high cuts, high draws. It's fucking insane. Like, I think he is truly leveling up right now with his swing change.
Yeah, I mean, going and winning the Race to Dubai and winning the DP World Tour Championship just caps off a 2024 that he was super emotional about it afterwards. Obviously, he had the divorce, and then they called it back, and then he had the breakdown and missed the putt at the U.S. Open. Should be having...
His wife's an absolute rocket, by the way. I just got to say that. I've never really seen her before, but you wouldn't expect anything less out of Rory. I just got to say, yeah, good for him.
Just got to put that out there. He, this I think could propel him to a great 2025 on the PGA Tour. And I feel like Rory is a guy that now that he's winning a little bit more and winning on the DP World Tour and has this good taste in his mouth, I feel like that could be some motivation for him going into next year. But also it could just be the swing change as well that's helping. You just kind of touched on it and what it's going to do for him going into 2025. So I kind of do anticipate Rory winning a major, maybe the Masters next year, and just being back to the player where he's actually finishing, because he's too good of a player to not finish, but he's also so good of a player and such a mogul in the game of golf that you can't talk shit about him, or you can't not talk shit about him when he doesn't finish and when he does lose these leads or lose to certain players. And ironically, he birdied the 16th hole to break a tie with Rasmus Højgaard, whose brother, Nikolai Højgaard, we talk about them quite a bit on the pod, won the DP World Championship last year. So the Højgaard twins just kind of owning the DP World Championship. And I'm actually going to skip around and go to a different topic that we were going to talk about, but just talk about it now because we're on the DP World Tour world, in that world right now. So there's 10 new players from the DP World Tour on the Race to Dubai that are going to be PGA Tour players next year. These 10 players: Rasmus Højgaard, Thriston Lawrence, one of your favorites, Paul Waring.
It's Tristan.
Tristan.
Right.
I like saying Thriston. I want to butcher all these names.
I'm sorry. Is it Thurston? It's Thurston.
Well, it's Thriston. So
No, I'm sorry.
It's probably Tristan. So we got Rasmus Højgaard, Tristan Lawrence, Paul Waring, Jesper Svensson, Nicholas Norgard, Matteo Manacero, Torbjorn Olsen, Antoine Rosner, Rikua Hoshino, and Tom McKibben. So those 10 players, 3 Swedish guys, actually, which is kind of exciting. But one other thing or 3 guys from Denmark, Danish guys. One thing I wanted to parlay into another question I asked you about the DP World Tour. Do you think that this change in the eligibility rankings where the top 10 players get to go play on the PGA Tour? Now, obviously, it's not guaranteed that they will, because that's a big life change for these guys too. I mean, it's definitely more money, but they're already very clearly very comfortable on the DP World Tour winning these events. We'll probably see a lot more live guys, so a little bit more stiffer competition in 2025 on the DP World Tour. But do you think it's kind of watering down and ruining the product from, instead of They basically figured out they can't compete with the PGA Tour. Not that they were always trying to, but they know they can't. So they've almost turned themselves into a feeder league for the PGA Tour. They basically said, hey, we're AAA to the PGA Tour's major leagues. Is that like ruining the product overall, or do you think it's cool because now with what we know with PGA Tour and where it's going in terms of its amount of players with cards, etc., is it watering down this product of the DP World Tour where it's like there's not enough good players on it to make it interesting? And granted, like I said, the guys will go back. The Rorys, Hatton's playing in a lot of these. Sergio Garcia has paid some of his fines and appealed that he's suspended from the DP World Tour to get back. So, like, what do you think of the product? Are they ruining themselves by getting their top 10 players onto the PGA Tour?
See, so you frame it in like, is this watering down the product? I actually think it's doing the exact opposite. I think that it's improving the product in multiple ways. First of all, you've got so many more storylines because you have guys coming from all over the world, literally from Asia all the way to Europe to Australia to America. Every single continent, there's guys playing on the DP World Tour. Especially with this influx of Americans going over there now, being able to watch our boy Davis play on the DP World Tour and there's so many college kids now going the DP World Tour route that aren't automatically getting PGA Tour cards. But overall, the DP World Tour is frankly more well run from almost every aspect than the PGA Tour is. Its social media is better. Its commentary is better. Its schedule is better. In my opinion, the DP World Tour, like the only thing the DP World Tour doesn't have that the PGA Tour has is all the money to pay these guys, all the corporate sponsors, the big trillionaire companies that want to come in and sponsor these events. Not trillions, but you get it. You rarely see the DP World Tour events sponsored by a pharmaceutical company or, all these events over on the PGA Tour that are sponsored by these crazy corporate companies over there. It's not quite the exact same. But I think the DP World Tour is actually a better product. I prefer to watch that to the PGA Tour because now there's more parity as well. There's more players that are capable of winning. And like you said, with the PGA Tour cutting down cards from 125 members now to 100 members, there's even that much less parity. It's all and shout out Monday Q Info because he interviewed one of the players he didn't name that was kind of a PGA Tour bubble guy, and he said that all these top players want to pull the ladder up behind them. They basically want to get up there and then not allow anyone else up there, similar to like what Wyndham Clark said last year. So it is an interesting and kind of a sad thing on the PGA Tour where you're not going to hear about these guys coming out of nowhere like Rafa Campos. Rafa Campos, a couple years from now, wouldn't have a PGA Tour card. He finished outside of the top 100. He would not be playing last week, where he went on to win in Bermuda. So it's just shit like that where that dude changed his life last week. His career trajectory, because he was in none of the signature events. He was in nothing. I don't know if this gets him into everything, but it definitely gets him into the Tournament of Champions.
He's in the Century, Tournament of Champions. He's in the Masters now, so...
I mean, that is a career-changing win for him, and he never would have even had that opportunity if this was next year and he was outside the top 100. So it's just the lack of parity now that's going to happen on the PGA Tour that even makes the DP World Tour that much more inviting, because I guarantee you those top DP World Tour guys, you named all of them, they're all from Europe. They're going to want to come play back on the DP World Tour for the big events. So maybe it waters down some of the lesser events. I guess it's kind of a trickle-down effect where it helps the PGA Tour, kind of makes the lesser, because I don't think the premier DP World Tour events will be affected, because all those guys, like you said, the Live Tour guys are now back eligible to play in those events, which is going to be amazing. We're going to see guys like John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton, all of those guys being able to play in all the big DP World Tour events. And then you've got guys like Rory want to come over. But you're telling me Tristan Lawrence isn't going to come over, play the Scottish Open, play the Irish? Like, there's still events that no matter what on the DP World Tour, all the premier guys in the world want to come over and play in those. So they're still going to have all those guys in that field. But then on the off weeks, you're gonna have all these college kids from the U.S. continent. I guess I was gonna say U.S. college system, but from the U.S. colleges that go over there and are on the DP World Tour that are competing to earn their PGA Tour card. Like, I think, long story short, I know I'm rambling at this point, but DP World Tour week in, week out, I think is a better watch and will be a better watch going forward than the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And you kind of parlayed that into the changes the PGA Tour is making. So let's talk about those a little bit. So these are approved rules changes for 2026. Only 100 players will keep their tour cards with fully exempt status at the year's end. You know, we just talked about it, the 125 now, so 25 less players with a full exempt tour card. Tour cards will be available for those graduating from the Korn Ferry Tour will decrease from 30 to 20. So there's only 20 spots instead of 30. 10 players on the Korn Ferry Tour now will not earn their tour cards. There will be some small adjustments in FedEx Cup point allocations and a reduction in spots available in tour fields through Monday qualifying. So Monday Q Info, unfortunate for him, I guess he said something about, they basically, like they said, with the ladder pulling it up. And I have a quote from Lucas Glover that is actually kind of funny going on to this, because he was one of those players that was fighting in that 120 to 125 range a couple of years ago, then won back-to-back tournaments, which is still like so improbable to me in my mind watching him do that last year in 2023. But then also field sizes for many events will be reduced, and in some cases, including the Players Championship, to 120 players. So I'll play devil's advocate here for a second before I get to this Lucas Glover quote, because I do think how many times do we talk about pace of play? How many times is it a topic in golf? It's always a topic, no matter if it's the PGA Tour, if it's your Saturday tournaments that you're running where you want to get out of there quicker. It's constantly a problem.
Charlie Hull said you should lose your tour card if you get called for 3 pace of play violations. That's how hardcore she wants to go with it. If anybody couldn't like her even more after that quote.
Yeah, anything Charlie Hull says, I'm tuning in for sure. And maybe Jay Monahan and company should as well. But I really, don't get me wrong. If I was sitting here and I actually had a chance to play in some PGA Tour events as the lowest of the low guy or Monday Q and getting in, I wouldn't probably be singing this tune. So I'll start with that. But how many times did on Thursday, Friday, you got guys teeing off at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon and they're playing like 7 holes? And then they're playing 9 holes, 10, 11 holes Friday morning to try to get that round in. And then they're flipping back and going right back out on the course Friday to try to get that. Overall, I do think it's not great that they're reducing the amount of tour cards, the amount of people in fields. But I do think that if they're doing this and it actually helps the pace of play on the PGA Tour and allows them to finish most of the rounds on Thursday, Friday, and not have this Saturday cut, I don't think it's going to help. But this is the one thing that would help, that would actually make these changes somewhat mean something in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to reduce pace of play. It's just going to open up more daylight for guys to tee off. So the guys are still going to play in 5.5 hours. And another side comment, by the way, another reason the DP World Tour is just that much better than the PGA Tour. Monday Q Info has constantly gotten shut down by the PGA Tour, not welcomed out to their events, had content taken down. The DP World Tour invited Monday Q Info to DP World Tour Q School this year and had him cover it so he could highlight some of the lesser stories, some of the non-mainstream media stories. And that is just one of the reasons why I said the DP World Tour is better than the PGA Tour, because they welcome content like that instead of turn it down. And like you said, at the beginning of your comment, it's not going to reduce PGA Tour pace of play by any means, but there is think about it like this. If you took the 12 worst NBA teams in the league and just said you're not allowed to be in the NBA anymore because you're not good, what would that do for the league? Like, does it make the league better? Not necessarily, because the fucking Charlotte Hornets or the Detroit Pistons can go out one night and beat the Celtics or the Nuggets or whoever. You still need the parity within the sport, and the PGA Tour just wants to basically take all of that out and just focus on their superstars, which oddly enough some other sports are not as good at. Like the MLB is terrible at highlighting their superstars, but you have to there's areas to highlight every single place in the PGA Tour, from the grinders that lose their card to the champions to that's why there's that many players out there, because there's all the storylines. We don't want just 100 dudes making $20 million a year fucking living high off the hog. Like, we need those grinders. That has been a part of golf, and it will still be a part of golf, and that's what makes it beautiful. Like, the PGA Tour, I don't think it'll ever get to this point, but I guarantee you there's a decent amount of guys that see now this reduced number and they're going in a different direction. Like, they don't even want to try to play on the PGA Tour anymore, because Q School runs you 20, 25 grand, and that's just the entry fees, and you make no money. And then you're fucking grinding out on the Corn Ferry Tour, and the competition on the Corn Ferry's gotten outrageous. Like, those fields are almost better at sometimes than there are in PGA Tour events. Like, it is getting so much harder and harder, that unless you're these blue chip kids that you're a +5 when you're 14 years old, you're boat racing everybody, you're playing in AJGAs, you have a D1 scholarship to a top 25 program in the country. If you're not one of those kids, it's going to kill a lot of dreams. If I'm just being honest, the smaller you make the PGA Tour, the less people are going to try to get out there, just flat out.
Yeah, and you're 100% right on that. So Lucas Glover, the quote is, Lucas Glover slams changes being made on the PGA Tour Policy Board. First quote, they think we're stupid. Second quote, I think it's terrible. And then hiding behind pace of play, I think challenges our intelligence. They think we're stupid. Don't cut fields because it's a pace of play issue. Tell us to play faster, or just say you're trying to appease the 6 guys and make them happy so they don't go somewhere else and play golf.
No shit. I like Lucas Glover for saying that, because that is something that a lot of guys would not say and put their name on. Golfers aren't known for being that outspoken and puff your chest out and fucking say it with your chest. Those guys are not really known for that. So for Lucas to come out and say that is awesome, because I guarantee you 90%, if you're not in that top 6, if you're not Rory or Scotty or one of the other top 10 guys on the PGA Tour, you probably feel the exact same way. Like, and there wasn't even a quote I read. This is great, because it was from Rafa Campos at the beginning of last year, where he had gotten his PGA Tour card back after a couple years of grinding on the Corn Ferry, and he had went and played elsewhere. He finally got his PGA Tour card back, and he was like, I think this was like last March, he said, I don't even feel like I'm a part of the PGA Tour because of all the events I'm not allowed to play in, all of these starts that I can't make unless it's, the fucking Bob Hope, which is now the MasterCard at La Quinta. That's the one that all like, they don't get to play in the Sony Open. They don't get to play, obviously, in the Tournament of Champions. They get like 3 or 4 starts in the first few months of the PGA Tour season, these lower tier guys, simply because they don't have the status. And Rafa Campos is like, how am I supposed to go and get any sort of momentum when I have a full PGA Tour card and I'm exempt for 3 out of like the first 6 or 7 events on the PGA Tour? Like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. So it's just so frustrating that the PGA Tour constantly somehow looks at their product and seems to make it worse. Like, it goes against, and Jay Monahan, he catches a lot of heat, don't get me wrong, but he should honestly catch more heat for what he's done to the PGA Tour. He's made he's scratched a lot of backs and fucking gotten billions of dollars through the door, but he's ultimately lost the PGA Tour money relative to what I think somebody else could come in and do with that situation.
Yeah, and it might be, a circumstance you don't see commissioners and leagues flip over a ton, but it might make sense for, I'm going to make a hot take here and just say that maybe Jay Monahan is just part of this until a bigger deal gets done with the PGA Tour, LIV, DP World Tour, this giant merger, the PIF, all that stuff. And then he's going to ride off into the sunset after that. He's going to get this deal done, and then he's going to move on.
I mean, I'm sure, because he's going to get a massive payout. But I heard the story of initially the PGA Tour was going to buy in, or I'm sorry, was going to get bought. Like they were selling some of their rights for billions and billions of dollars. And now it's the deal has like flipped to where the PGA Tour has gotten devalued, and the PGA Tour is actually buying in to these other tours, actually shelling out money when they would be receiving money otherwise. So Jay Monahan, I don't even know if that exactly made sense. It kind of did in my brain, but I think Jay Monahan is actually losing the PGA Tour billions of dollars when it all comes out at the end of this deal. But the dude's making $45 million a year working for a nonprofit. I mean, maybe he'll just go run Salvation Army after this or some shit because he's never going to need to work another day in his life. It's a joke.
Yeah, he's done working. Before we get to our mulligan of the week, we also want to give a shout out to our girl, Nelly Korda. We've been engagement farming Nelly. I was giving RK shit for engagement farming Peggy in this whole 100th birthday thing, the CU, older CU fan, and they've been engaged farming the shit out of Peggy. He said Peggy Bank. It's the Peggy Bank, the engagement Peggy Bank. So
he's laughing all the way to the Peggy Bank.
Yeah, so we've got our Nelly Bank. Shout out to all those that have engaged with the clips the last couple of days, and really some wild comments on our TikTok the other day.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to move on. I was just going to say the comment where this dude said, Nelly is not doing anything for 90% of the population. Sorry to burst your bubble. And I think then he buddied me. Sorry to burst your bubble, bud. I was like, to each their own, first of all. But second of all, if you're commenting on our TikTok and you're just, I don't care who you are, I would say about 99.9% of the population would date Nelly Korda tomorrow. So this dude, it is just, the irony is laughable of these people on TikTok hiding behind a screen saying, oh, Nelly's not hot. You know, I don't know if I would date Nelly. I don't know how anybody could find her attractive. It's like, are you out of your fucking mind? She's a 6-foot Swedish blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl that is better at golf than 99% of the any population. Forget males, female, male. She's the best golfer in the world, and she's fucking gorgeous and makes a shitload of money. Like, she is literally the prime bachelorette of U.S. sports. So I don't know how you're getting any better than that. And these dudes on TikTok are like, oh, I could probably do better. Like, it's just so fucking out of pocket. It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's absurd. So she narrowly beat Charlie Hull. Women's tournaments, the names are always funny to me just because I feel like they way overplay them. So she won the Annika Driven by Gainbridge at Pelican. That was the official the official title of the tournament at Pelican Golf Club in Bel Air, Florida. Her 7th win of the year. 7, she could do the touchdown dance. Get all the way up to number 7, like Scotty Scheffler. Shout out to Nelly Korda just for her dominant 2024. She's on the swimsuit issue. Nelly Korda stock way the fuck up, like Bitcoin in the last 2 weeks. That's how this is navigated. She's navigated this life.
She's the NVIDIA of the golf world at this point. She's just doing nothing but mooning.
To the moon. All right, let's wrap this episode up with our Mulligan Monday, which is ironically it's Wednesday, so our hump day mulligan of the week. I'll start out, and pretty much every one of my mulligans of the week deal with my son. He has turned into a soy-nado is what we're calling him now, but the guy is just, he's the best. He's so much fun to be around, so much fun to mess around with, and loud and yelling. But we were in Costco the other day, and I, being the fun dad I am, I like to think so. I like to rile him up, and I really like to just get after him. And so when he's sitting in the cart, I'm like getting after him. I'm like poking his belly. I'm like just playing with him, and he fucking kicks me in the nuts so hard that I was borderline paralyzed for the rest of the Costco trip. I was, when your stomach immediately hurts and you just feel like sick to your stomach. That's what happened to me because I was riling him up, and then I got too close to the cart and his little feet are dangling, and just boom, right in. I was like, this is not good. I was like silent the rest of the trip.
Oh, dude, yeah. There's nothing as a male, there's nothing that even comes close in comparison to the pain of getting just kicked straight in the nards. Okay, so my mulligan of the week, unfortunately, it's not really something I guess I could take back. It's just me not being technologically inclined whatsoever. So our sound bar on the TV, fucking $400 Bose sound bar, pretty fucking nice. I guess I've had it for 3 years, so it's not like it's brand new, but it's just like updating and it just won't stop updating. And I have no means of fixing it. Like, I don't know. I've tried everything, aka I just unplug it and plug it back in and hope that something's going to change it. And then I actually plugged it into my computer, and I had to like dismantle my girlfriend's whole like office to get the adapter, and it just did fucking nothing. It's just I'm staring at the exact same thing. So this sound bar is defeating me. And I think I'm gonna have to take it to like Geek Squad, but there's no screen, it's not telling me anything. I'm just like, I'm at a complete loss of what to do with this thing. So I'm close to going and just buying a new one, but I prefer not to do that. So we'll see if somebody smarter than me can. If anybody watching has ever dealt with issues on a Bose soundbar, give me a shout, because otherwise this fucking thing's gonna get office spaced out of the window down into the fucking parking lot, and I'm gonna go buy a new one. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, it's a deflating feeling when you just can't, like, I feel like I'm pretty technologically inclined, and when something's driving me nuts, like my wife's laptop not having a cursor right now, I got unbelievably pissed off last night. And
yeah, it's just like a fit of rage where you don't know where to put that rage. Like you can do nothing with it. It's just, you have to take that L.
Yeah, I usually I put it onto my dogs. That's usually where it ends up being distributed.
That's fucked up.
All right, well, not physically. Let's get clear. I don't need Pete after me. All right, that wraps up this week of Big Drive Energy. We appreciate you all tuning in. Shout out to Rafa Campos, Pins and Aces guy, winning his first tournament. Like Mitchell said, life-changing. Nelly Korda wins again. PGA Tour loses again. We'll be back next week some point to talk to you guys about football, apparently, and about a little bit of golf. So enjoy your weekend.
The Australian Open is on this weekend, so there is some golf on down under.
Yeah, there's a PGA Tour event this weekend as well, a fairly decent one, I think. So we're getting into silly season of the PGA Tour schedule, but also next week, Thanksgiving, potential guest on, a lot of things coming up for you on Big Drive Energy. You guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you then. Peace.
We all silly like the mail.